Alright, today I'm doing a video on what it takes in Louisiana to get a vessel registered as homemade, whether it's motorized or non-motorized. Louisiana law states if it's a motorized vessel, it has to get inspected and registered. If it's a houseboat, it has to get titled. If it's homemade, it has to get titled. So if you're building a homemade vessel with no motor, you need a title and an inspection. If you're doing a homemade vessel with a motor, it needs title and registration with inspection. If you're doing a houseboat, you automatically have to get a title and only a registration if you're going to motorize it. So if you're not going to motorize it, no registration is needed. If you're going to motorize it, you need registration. First thing you do is buy all your lumber and start building. But when you buy, I have my addresses blocked out. Your receipt. I bought my lumber from Chauvin Brothers. I had to create an account to where my name could be on it. The first time I went, my name wasn't on the receipts, so I failed inspection. That was part of the reason why I failed my first inspection, because my name wasn't on the receipts. There was nothing tying me to the receipts, because you can get receipts from anywhere. So your first step is to buy your materials. Make sure your invoice or buyer's order has receipts and sales tax paid for the state you're in. Louisiana is 9.95. So you make sure your receipt states taxes are paid, and it has your name, and it has a list of what's on there, the quantity. They don't care about this price. They just care that it says sales tax paid. The list has to be pretty specific. Everything has to be itemized. Everything has to be accounted for. Depending on what agent you get is going to determine how thorough they are. So once you have all your receipts, you start building, and from there you go to Wildlife and Fisheries. You don't have to bring the receipts with you to the main Wildlife and Fisheries office. You fill out the normal registration, which I have a normal registration. Let me grab that, show you what that looks like in Louisiana. I don't believe I have a copy of my registration. Give me a minute right here. This is Louisiana's current registration form. Your state's going to be different, obviously, but in Louisiana, you're going to fill out, you don't have a current registration number, you don't have out of state because it's homemade, so you're going to check off new registration, a renewal, and if you're doing title, you need a new title transfer fee, and inspection. Somewhere here is inspection. Right here, an inspection fee. So that wound up costing me $111 to pay for those three items. Then you find your length, and that's how you get your price for your fee. Mine was it falls in the 16 to 25 foot category. It's a 22 foot vessel. So that was $57 plus a $25 inspection fee, plus a new transfer fee or a new title fee of $26, and new registration fee, which comes back to this $57. And of course, you're gonna fill out your name, your address, and then you fill out the information on the boat, what you're using it for, pleasure, material, vessel type, and if you select house, you automatically have to get a title. Cabin, you don't have to. House, you have to. And then of course, your propulsion and everything else, and then you sign it. You write the total amount, but I don't write the total amount because I'm always wrong, because after the fee they add sales tax. So I came up with like $108, and when I got there it was $111. So I had to redo all this, and I filled it out at the Office of Wildlife and Fisheries. So once you get that done, you bring this paperwork with you. That's all you need at Baton Rouge Wildlife and Fisheries, and you pay for it. At that time they give you a receipt for your sale, which mine was $111.24. Then they're going to give you a paper, this paper with a date. This was my paper from Baton Rouge Wildlife and Fisheries stating I paid and I need an inspection, and I had to call this number, which is my local Thibodeau Wildlife office. And I wound up calling them and say, hey, look, I just paid in Baton Rouge for inspection for a homemade houseboat. I need to set up a date. And they gave me a date, which was 2 Mondays ago. I asked them, what do I need? Can you tell me in detail what I have to have when I go there besides bringing the vessel? Because I had to bring the vessel with me for inspection. And they told me itemized receipts for everything, proof of paid taxes. That's all he told me. And at that time I told him, well, I have receipts for all the lumber and the materials. The only thing I don't have receipts for was my barrels. Was that going to be a problem? Nope. No, that's not going to be a problem. We can get around that. As long as you have receipts for the main structure, we're good. So Monday came. I showed up. Inspector came out. It was like an hour and a half wait. They had other people ahead of me. Inspector came out. He started looking at everything. He started flipping through receipts. He was looking for everything that's on this list. He was counting it out, looking for it. And he was being very thorough, which I'm glad he was thorough, but I was aggravated that he was that thorough because it looked like he was counting screws. Anyway, he started looking through the receipts, and when he came to the last one, where's the receipts for the barrels? Well, I don't have it. I was told I didn't need it. No, you had to have receipts for everything that prove that you pay taxes. And I kind of talked about this a little bit in another video. Well, I told him I didn't have that. I got the barrels from a person. I didn't get them from a business. And he said, well, you have to have receipts. He suggested I fill out what's called an affidavit of ownership. I don't know if I have an affidavit of ownership form. And that's an affidavit for boat inspection. Anyway, you have to have what's called an affidavit of ownership, which basically means you fill it out. You fill out what it's for. In my case, it would have been 25 used blue barrels. And then they sign off on it. It gets sent to a judge. A judge will issue you a court date. And when you go to court, you have to explain to the judge how you acquired the barrels, how long you had the barrels, who you got the barrels from. They want a complete chain of ownership and history of the barrels or whatever items that you didn't pay taxes on. And at that point, the judge decides if the barrels are rightfully yours. Then the judge gets someone to assess the value of the barrels, and they write you a ticket. You go down to the assessor's office and you pay taxes on whatever value they assess. That's how the wildlife fisheries suggested I go about it. Without that, my barrels cannot pass inspection. So I suggested a different route. My wildlife agent said yes, that'll be fine. I suggested, how about I go to the guy that I got the barrels from? I notarize a bill of sale with a cash value. Then I take that bill of sale to the assessor's office and I go pay taxes on it. And that would show proof of taxes paid on the used barrels. He said, yes, that's fine. So what I done at that point, I went find the guy, block out his name. I went get a notarized bill of sale. It's a Louisiana legal notary. This is not the original copy. This is a copy. The Wildlife Fisheries kept the original. But anyway, my value was $250 for 25 barrels. So I had to go pay taxes. And to go pay taxes, I went to assessor's office, which was not easy to find in Louisiana. In my hometown, they moved the building. I went to 4 different buildings. I went to our government tower on the 5th floor, is where the assessor's office been for years. When I got there, they said, oh no, we can't help you. We don't collect taxes here anymore. You're gonna have to go to the courthouse, which was a couple blocks away. Not a problem, went to the courthouse. Courthouse had a sign in the window stating the office moved to the next town over. They told me I need to go to the tax collector in the new sheriff's department, next town over. So I done that, went there. They directed me which building I had to go in. I went in and she told me, no, sorry sir, we only accept payment for land tax. Excuse me. What you're gonna have to go do is go to the government tower and pay your taxes there. I said, ma'am, I've already been to the government tower. They directed me to the courthouse, and the courthouse directed me here. So she called the government tower. It turns out I need to go on the 6th floor. The 6th floor handles taxes for goods. So I went there, and when I got there, the lady looked over. She said she needs to see all my receipts. So I showed her all of my receipts. I showed my inspection paper. I showed her my bill of sale on the barrels. And she said, "Man, ask you a few questions." Actually, asked about the seller. Who's the seller? I said, "It's just a guy I know. He was selling barrels. I needed barrels. I bought them." That was the end of the story. You know, that's I thought that's all that was needed. She said, "Okay." You know, she looked over all the paperwork again. She said, "I'll be back in a minute." She went to another office, came back in about roughly 2 minutes. She was very nice and polite and professional. She came back and she mentioned the seller's name, and said, "Okay, well, this is the seller's name, this is the town he lives in, and this is the place he works." Which I knew all this information, but I hadn't told her that information. It really wasn't relevant for what I needed done. So she told me they were waiting to hear back from the place that he works for them to send an invoice for 25 used blue barrels so that they can sign off on it and I pay the taxes. I was like, whoa. You can stop. You can stop right there. I did not buy barrels from this company. I've never been to this company. It doesn't matter to me if this guy represents this company. That's not where I got the barrels from. I'm not paying taxes on barrels from this company. There's no need to involve this company. I don't care where he got the barrels from. And she said, "Well, odds are he got the barrels from here because he works for this company." I don't care. I did not buy the barrels from that company. So I'm not saying she was being nosy. She was doing her job, trying to be thorough, you know, trying to get every bit of money for the state they can if a company is involved. I said, "Ma'am, this is a person. I'm a person. We had a cash sale. He was selling. I was buying. End of story. It doesn't matter to me where he got the barrels from." And he said, "Well, do you know if he paid taxes on the barrels?" "Ma'am, I do not know." I said, "I'm just here to pay my taxes because without a receipt claiming I paid taxes, Wildlife Fisheries would not help me and get my boat registered." And she said, "So it's just a regular person?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." And she said, "You're a regular person. You're not a business?" I said, "No, ma'am." She said, "Well, okay, in the state of Louisiana, you're not required to pay taxes on sales for cash goods from person to person. So you do not need to pay taxes." I said, "Well, can I get that in writing?" She said, "Well, I can do you better. I can write you a receipt saying that your purchase is tax exempt." And she said the Wildlife and Fisheries may or may not accept that. And I said, "Ma'am," I said, "can I just pay the taxes? Can I pay it or not?" And she said, "Yeah, but you're not going to like it." I said, I don't care what the amount is. I want to pay it." So she came back with this. A receipt from me. She had to list it as a boat sale. And the state taxes was, well, not state taxes. Taxes were $13.50. So I got the receipt. It's signed off. As far as I was concerned, this was done. She said, "Now this is the part you're not going to like. We only collect parish taxes. For y'all not familiar with Louisiana, we have parishes, y'all have counties. We only collect parish taxes. So I'm going to have to fill out another paper, which is this one. You're going to have to take this paper to Baton Rouge, to the capital, and pay state taxes." This is called the LDR, Louisiana Department of Revenue. And for every boat registration, you need this paper signed off to prove you pay taxes. Now, this paper just proves I paid the parish tax. In order to pay state tax, another amount gets filled out by someone else, and I get a representative at the Capitol signs off stating I paid the state taxes of $11.50 for state taxes. And at that point, this is what the Wildlife and Fisheries says they need. I explained. Okay, let me get back on track. So I now have this paper and this paper. That's what the Wildlife Fisheries needed. But I'm missing state taxes. So I took all of this paperwork with all of my receipts. They're all itemized, and also they would prefer this to be typed on there. I had to label what section of the boat this was for. This was 8x22, the cross braces. Mainframe, you know, my 2x6x20, and that way they can actually look at it. It's easier for them to locate. It makes the process faster, and also sales taxes paid. So after gathering all this, I went to the Wildlife and Fisheries, explained to him my dilemma, what the assessor's office said about me not having to pay state tax, and I want to pay taxes anyway. So the captain of the Wildlife and Fisheries says, look, usually what we have to have this paper stating you pay state taxes. It does say you pay parish taxes. He said, look, it's a requirement, but we're gonna take care of it this time. But next time you come in here with a homemade vessel, you have to have state and parish taxes filled out. I said, well, what if she wrote me a receipt saying I was exempt, to where I didn't have to pay taxes? He said, you can have that paper, but it still needs to be signed off in Baton Rouge, stating that you're exempt. So that means a trip to Baton Rouge, or I had to mail this, wait a couple of weeks, and get it back. But it has to have that signature. So the wildlife agent actually called Baton Rouge, and they okayed it over the phone. So this Monday I went for my inspection. He looked over all this, made copies. These receipts, the ones for the nuts and the bolts, the little hardware store didn't have the capability of printing my name on it, so I couldn't prove this receipt was mine. But when I first went for the inspection, the guy questioned me about it, because it just says nuts and bolts, and I bought some chain. 4 for the chain, it just says 4 at $249. That's 4 foot at $249 a foot. It doesn't specify what it is. So I said, well, look, if it's a problem, I can pull that off. Because anything you have on that boat, when you bring it for inspection, you have to have proof you pay taxes. The lady who filled this out at the assessor's office asked me if I had a motor on there. I said, no, ma'am. She said, good, because if you had a motor on there, you had to bring your receipts and proof you pay taxes. Anything you have on that vessel, when it goes to get registered for homemade, you have to provide proof of taxes. So I would suggest you bring bare hull, whatever's needed to get the hull complete to be ready for inspection, which is just has to be a floating hull. Mine's a houseboat. I don't have a cabin on it. I left the motor off. The console is just a bare open deck on a hull. That's it. Because anything else on there, you have to itemize and show proof you pay taxes. The less you have on there, the less they can hassle you about. But that's been my experience with Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries to get a homemade vessel registered. It was a lot of runaround, a lot of hassle. I've been to Baton Rouge, I've been to Thibodaux, Louisiana, I've been to Houma, Louisiana, back to Thibodaux, Louisiana, and they wanted me to go back to Baton Rouge, which I wasn't really willing to do, but if I had to, I would have. They did give me a paper to where I can try to do it online. She said they may accept the payment over the phone if I had to pay those state taxes. Let me find that form right here. They gave me this paper with a phone number. She told me to call them. They're going to give me a correct email address. This email address probably will work, but they're going to give me possibly a different email address to mail off. I can scan this LDR paper. I can scan the LDR, and they're going to fill out, and they're going to scan and copy back, and they're going to set payment over the phone, possibly. That would save me a trip to Baton Rouge, which is 2.5 hours away for me to drive to Baton Rouge. But yeah, that was the process. It's very complicated. They're very thorough, and they said the reason they're this thorough is because what I stated in a previous video about Hurricane Katrina and Rita. People were going to Mississippi. They were stealing boats from Louisiana after the storm and going to sell it in Mississippi. It was easy to get what's called a bonded title or a salvage title at that time. And then when the storm hit Mississippi, they were doing the same thing, stealing boats from Mississippi and bringing to Louisiana. At that time, they were just listed as salvage or homemade. Homemade used to be very easy in Louisiana, and they used to have a such thing called a salvage title. Now there's no salvage title. If you acquire a boat and you want to try to get paperwork on it, but the person you have it does not have the paperwork, you have to do what's called an affidavit of ownership, as I discussed previously. You have to provide a history of how long you had it, where you got it from, who had it before you, where they got it from, if you know anything about the previous registration, where was it registered, and then it goes in front of a judge. You'll pay $300 to $500, and if the judge decides it's not your boat, it's not your boat. You wasted time and money that's non-refundable. At that point, when people are told you need to do the affidavit of ownership, most people just give up on the boat. That's why in Louisiana, there's an abundance of, there's more boats without papers than there are with papers because of stuff like this. I lucked out on one of my other boats. The papers were in my dad's house. My dad's house was destroyed for Hurricane Ida. We lost all the paperwork, and the boat was actually in the process of being rebuilt before the storm. So we took the hen plate off and we put it in the envelope with the registration, and there was no decals on the boat, because the boat was on my dad's name. Whenever we renew, we're going to get new decals, and we already had the hen plate. Well, we lost all that. So thankfully, I found a bill of sale from 2005 from when my dad bought the boat from the owner before him. And I contacted Wildlife and Fisheries. And on that bill of sale, it did have the HIN number and the description of the boat, and it was proof of ownership. So I gave them the last registered LA number, and they were able to look it up and say, yes, it's on so-and-so's name. You just need a bill of sale from them to you. So I wanted to transfer it to my name, and that one cost me $62. That was the easy process. But had I not found that bill of sale from 2005, there's no way I could ever get papers on that boat again. It used to be you could just do a little bit of work on a boat in Louisiana. Just a couple $100 of fiberglass and some repairs. You provide those receipts and have it inspected. You can get a factory haul made by another manufacturer and get papers on it. And that's no longer allowed. So anyway, I'm rambling. Any questions or comments, please leave them down. I just want to share my wildlife and fisheries experience and what's needed in Louisiana to get a homemade vessel registered, what's allowed, what's not allowed. And again, I would suggest you bring your bare hull. Also at the assessor's office, she questioned me about the trailer the boat was on. Wanted to know if I had proof of tax paid in there, and I did, but I didn't need it. But she told me I would need proof of taxes paid on the trailer. But she said you have to go down to the DMV for that, and I said that's already done. Trailer's already legal on my name. Which she wasn't questioning the legality of the trailer, she was questioning the ownership of the trailer. Because sometimes when you build a homemade vessel, the trailer has to be built to cater to the vessel, and I still don't know what that has to do with the homemade boat and getting it titled. The trailer's just there for me to transport it for them to inspect it. I mean, I didn't make the trailer homemade, but some people do when they make a homemade vessel. But anyway, make sure all your paperwork is in order, all your receipts are itemized, and again, to recap, make sure your name is on the invoice from wherever you buy from. Make sure your name is on there, a good description of the items you bought, the quantity, and the all-important government factor, taxes paid, because this all comes down to money. You got to jump through all these hoops, which is good for safety, and it prevents, not that it prevents theft, it makes it harder for thieves to better want to steal your boat, because without papers it's harder for them to move. It used to be easy for them to get papers and it was easy to move. Now it's a lot harder for them. So now when they steal your boat, they strip it. They take the motor and everything else off, and you maybe steal your trailer and they'll ditch your boat somewhere. If you're lucky, you'll get most of it back. But I don't usually hear stories of people getting parts back. Sometimes they get their whole boat back within a few days, but not parts. Yeah, I'm rambling again. It's a habit of mine. Again, thank y'all for viewing. Make sure all your paperwork's right, and good luck with Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries. Thank you.